Hi, folks. I'm Glenn.
I'm Maureen.
And today we're continuing on with viewers' questions about buying land and finding your dream property. Maureen has had over 30 years' experience in the property assessment field, and we've purchased quite a few properties and sold properties over the years. And we're going to share some of our experience with you. And first question today.
Can you please define what freehold land means? Freehold land is land that has no encumbrances on it. So when you buy a piece of property and it says freehold, you can be confident there's no liens on it, there's no debts put towards it. It's free and clear for your ownership.
Question number 2.
A viewer wrote in and asked, it's really tough finding a piece of property nowadays. Do you have any tips on how to buy affordable raw land?
I would suggest that first thing you do is know the area that you would like to purchase your property. Go to the real estate map if you can. Here in Canada, you can go to realty.ca. There's all kinds of other services for real estate that you can go and look at. Look at the real estate market. Find out the location first of all, and then your price range. And the price range is going to be that range, which is what you would call affordable. So just keep looking in those price ranges. You can dial those price ranges in when you look online at the property that you're interested in or in the area that you're interested in geographically.
There's corporations that buy and sell land. So you'd be able to look them up in the States. One of them is Land Watch. I believe they're in Ontario as well. And a lot of times you can get better deals with them sometimes because they buy the land and then they resell it.
Sometimes you can also perhaps look at the tax sales, and you can sometimes get land for lower prices, reduced prices and whatnot, depending on the situation. So that would be something to look at. Also, there's the Ontario Gazette, where there are sometimes land which is available there, correct?
Yes.
And there's quite a few sources actually where you can find land that might be what you deem to be affordable. And of course, that's all a matter of perception. We all have our own, range that we like to operate within, right? So, but that's a great question.
Now keep in mind when you're looking for affordable raw land, I assume it's land that's a little bit less pricey. And if you do go to these, like say other corporations or the Gazette, a lot of times because you're not using a realtor, do your homework and do your due diligence when you're looking at that land to make sure everything is good.
And I would suggest that when you go to seal the deal, that you do that with the assistance of a lawyer. If you have a question, ask in the comments. Question number 3.
How many properties did you look at before you bought the property you live on now?
Wow, we looked at a lot of properties. I would say upwards of maybe 30 properties over the course of about 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
When Maureen was just getting ready to retire, I had already retired, and we thought that it was time that we should look forward to our retirement years. Well, about 5 years before then, we started looking at the market and really monitoring the market of what did we want, the price range, all that type of stuff, and most of all, where we wanted. And it was about 3 years beforehand, we started visiting different localities in the areas that we felt that we wanted to retire and settle down in. About 30 properties later, we did finally find one. And we did hold out a couple of times where there was a few properties that we wanted to make an offer in, a couple we missed out on because we waited, and maybe that was a blessing in disguise because we found this one, and this was pretty much answered every single box that we had to check mark off. Every single one pretty well was a check mark, so we're very happy that we did wait. So I'd suggest for you, if you want to find some land within your price range, be patient, do your homework, stay on top of the market, and you'll know then when a deal comes along. Tip of the day.
You want to save some money? Sometimes a vendor take-back mortgage could be a good way to go when you're looking at property because the vendor is going to be holding the mortgage and making the interest money. They may be willing to take a little bit less of an offer on the cost of the property.
There have been times when people have not been able to go to a banking institution in order to secure their mortgage, in which case they have been known to ask the seller if they would do a vendor take back. And sometimes it can be a very, good arrangement depending on exactly what the particulars are and interest rates and all that kind of a thing. But it could be a good way to go. And question number 4.
A real estate listing had a note on it saying subject to severance. What does that mean? Well, subject to severance on a real estate listing means that someone has a larger piece of property and they have divided it up into smaller tracts of land and they're selling them before the severance is complete, which does happen occasionally, and it's all right for that to happen, but it is a good flag for the person who's looking for property to ask the realtor to get a copy of the sketch of the land that's in the process of severance.
Because sometimes those severances, they could be that the parcel of land has been divided up into 2 parts, so you'll have a neighbor, or it could be divided up into 3, 4, or more parts, or even into a subdivision.
That's
so,
right.
The first person that purchases one of those parts may think, well, we're, all alone here, only to find out a couple of years later that, you're surrounded by all kinds of other landowners, right?
Right. I have a story for you. There was one severance I had to go out as a property inspector to check, and there was about 5 different lots, all about the same size, the same type of forest. It was really nice. They all looked very, very similar. And later on, a few years later, one of those lots sold, and someone had put a house up. So I went back again to assess the house on the property, did all my work. I got a phone call a few months later from someone saying, I didn't build a house. So I said, well, there's a house on your property. We went back, myself and a colleague went back to make sure all my work was done right. Sure enough, that property had a house on it. His neighbor, in the process of buying his land, was looking at, say, lot 3, but his offer and his purchase was for lot 4. They had made a mistake. Luckily for the person who built the house, the persons who owned the land that the house was put on was willing to switch deeds.
Wow. So that shows you the mistake of walking 50 yards further down the road and looking at a property that's for sale and thinking that that's your lot, and then not checking it out, and then getting the work guys, once you purchase it, getting the work guys in to bulldoze and build a house on it. Wow, only to find out later on that, no, that's the wrong property. Wow, it's happened. Yep. Question number 5.
How do you avoid buying swampy land when you're looking for property in dry season? A lot of that is, again, driving the roads, learning the areas, learning what the land is like in the area that you're looking at. Sometimes you can tell by the way the lay of the land is. Sometimes it takes looking at topographical maps and doing some more research and knowing the area that you're looking to buy in.
I would say if you're in a drought situation and looking at land where the geography is experiencing drought, and therefore it's not normal, normal water levels and whatnot, I would suggest that you walk the property and look at your lay of the land and the lower spots where water would tend to drain into. And if that is a flood area in the past, when it's a normal year, not a drought year, but a normal year, and water has filled all that up, you may be able to see the telltale signs of the water being there just by looking at the land. But not only that, the type of foliage, the type of plants and whatnot that are there. Often you can tell that certain grasses will grow up in wetter areas. I mean, to the point where, if you dug down a few inches, you'd be able to find out if that land is wet or not. And if it's wet in a dry, drought stricken time, then I would suggest that in a normal year, that land will become much more wet than in what it is. Other than that, you can also look on the maps for elevations and know what the lay of the land is as far as the elevations and where water would tend to pool. You can also look at land use maps and find out if it is been a swamp or something like that in the past. You can often find that because satellite images aren't always that new, right? So
Right. And also, this could be a time when local knowledge could be good. Ask people around the area what the area is like, especially if it is, like, say, a drier season. And also, this shows the value of having a real estate agent who's familiar with the area.
they know if there's been floods in the past, that kind of thing. Well, those are good questions.
Yeah, if you have questions, put them in the comments.
That's all for this one. We'll see you next time. I'm Glenn.
I'm Maureen.
Over and out.
Take care.